After Victorian novel and Victorian poetry, we have to discuss Victorian drama. But this label, Victorian drama, almost is non-existent. And another label is more popular, that is used, modern drama. We can say the 19th century drama or drama after first half of 19th century, that is called modern drama and known for European dramatists and their influence. But I first introduced an Irish dramatist, Oscar Wilde, and his play The Importance of Being Earnest, that is in many ways continuity of English tradition of comedy of manners, and that actually sums up the standards and snobbery of Victorian age, and also presents the second thought on Victorian standards. Oscar Wilde is a dramatist who was seen on the English theatre in the same period of 1890s. You can say the last decade of 19th century, when Ibsen's plays, they were produced. The quintessence of Ibsenism was published in the same year when Oscar Wilde, The Soul of Man Under Socialism, was published. So, socialist ideas, Fabian, that's a brand of socialism seen in dramas of George Bernard Shaw. That was the time of re-evaluation of artistic expression. Oscar Wilde successful plays were written and performed in a period of 3 years between 1892 and 1895, in the same last decade. These plays are known for their wit, epigram, parallels, paradox, and they actually contribute for the cause, which is seen in his essay, The Truth of Mask. A woman of no importance, Lady Windermere's fan, an ideal husband, obscure social origin, in the importance of being earnest. Oscar Wilde plays are introduced as the light comedy, the comedy of manners, and entertainment plays. Apparently, they are fun. They amuse the readers and audience through frequent use of wit. But these plays are about a hypocritical society of Victorian age. And he comments upon or ridicules the seriousness which we see a pretended snobbery of Victorian age. In the play The Importance of Being Earnest, character of Lady Bracknell is an example of those ideals which were advocated by the contemporary society. These Victorian ideals are control, authority, conformist attitude, greed for wealth, influencing the mind of young generation through parenting, controlled education, and a social image. And that's pseudo seriousness is ridiculed through one open critic of that norms of society mean Algernon, who coins another idea of Bunburyism, and he escapes the family duties and boring and monotonous routine of city life to celebrate his escape and freedom in the countryside. He claims that he has an invalid friend, Bunbury, and he has to go to attend that invalid friend. Lady Bracknell is much annoyed of his sudden plans to go and meet his friend Bunbury. And other is hypocritical John or Jack. Real name is John, but he is mostly called Mr. Jack Worthing. And he leaves the countryside where he has to act as a guardian of a young ward, Cicely Cardio. Jack is also sick of monotony and seriousness, and he enjoys the city life where he introduces himself as Ernest, a more romantic sort of person. And he has also invented an imaginary brother with the same name, Ernest, in the countryside. And he uses that excuse of irresponsible conduct of his brother Ernest in the city and takes leave of Miss Prism, Dr. Chasuble, and his young ward, Cicely Cardio. So we can say both chapters, city life and rural life, they are not worth living in that society. And in at both places, issue is same. That's seriousness and monotony and always claiming life for some so-called great responsibilities. And reality is that these men, either they belong to city or countryside, they want to enjoy their life. And for that pleasure-seeking attitude, they invent either Banbury or Ernest. These two young men of the age who are victims of seriousness of their society can be contrasted with two girls of the same age, Cicely Cardew and Gwendolyn Fairfax. They are full of romantic fantasies. Both of them fall in love with the person whose name is Ernest. You can say without considering the other merits. Gwendolyn is more concerned with the idea how she is proposed rather than what actually marriage is. And Cicely is so imaginative that in her first encounter with Algernon, she shows him a diary in which she has entered that she had an engagement with Algernon, and also an episode of breaking the engagement, and she shows him the ring and letters and many things which she has done before even meeting Algernon, who actually meets her as Ernest. So Jack met Gwendolyn as Ernest and Algernon met Cicely Cardew as Ernest. In a dramatic way, it is found at the end that both Algernon and Jack, they have surname Ernest, and they are the real brothers. And they are shocked that they have uh, spoken truth even unknowingly. मेन कि बड़ी मुश्किल से हम झूठ बोला था और वो जो है वो झूठ नहीं रहा, सच साबित. They are more concerned with fun rather than you can say truth. About education or knowledge, and many you can say norms are seen when Lady Bracknell, who believes that engagement is a shock or surprise for the young girl, when for the sake of her daughter Gwendolyn, she interviews Jack, one of the questions she poses, I have always been of opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know? Jack answers, I know nothing, Lady Bracknell. And she says, I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes and probably lead to acts of violence in governor's care. So we can see the manners just snobbery that is produced through education in British education system of the time, and she thinks that education keeps the people ignorant in British society. It does not spoil their natural ignorance, and that is a blessing in disguise, because education, if a genuine education is provided, it can be a threat to class, class division, class distinction. Between the lines, we can smell the socialist or Marxist ideas. Other dramatists of Oscar Wilde time include Pinero, who wrote Lady uh, who wrote farcical plays like The Second Mrs. Tanqueray, and Thomas Robertson, who wrote Society, Caste, Play, and School. But uh, beside Oscar Wilde, the dramatist that emerged with great worth, that's Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Ibsen is a Norwegian dramatist born in 28, and he is thought in many ways, particularly to the English audience, the pioneer of modern drama. We can say the history of drama shows first drama from Shakespeare to Ibsen, and then drama from Ibsen to contemporary days. Ibsen is a dramatist who emerges as a great dramatist for several ideas. For example, modern drama is noted with the trait of focus on individual living with social consciousness. And that can be seen in the dramas of Henrik Ibsen, though it continues with other dramatists like Anton Chekhov, George Bernard Shaw, Oxford Strindberg, and Hauptmann. But Ibsen appears as a dramatist who makes the middle class individual a genuine, legitimate subject of his drama. Second, Ibsen destroys the division of comedy and tragedy. No strict of division of comedy and tragedy is observed in modern theatre as it was seen in Renaissance and even in Restoration when comedy got much popularity. Third, that drama is engaged with certain movements. For example, realism, afterwards naturalism, symbolism, And we can see either exclusively or blend of these movements in the drama of Henrik Ibsen. For example, The Doll's House is taken as a great example of realist drama. Ibsen drama The Ghost is the best representation of naturalist theatre. Ibsen play The Wild Duck is an example of blend of naturalism and symbolism. Ibsen also emerged as an icon for the phenomenon which was mentioned in the novel Goodbye, Mr. Chips, a new woman of 1890s. Catherine Bridges is a character, every one of you is aware, and she is the new woman of 1890s. And what she does, she is impressed by the dramas of Ibsen and George Bernard Shaw. It means Ibsen has inspired the women of Europe of that time with ideals of revolt against family, individual freedom, and the idea of female self. Best example is The Doll's House, where Nora decides to live for her own self. Other example can be The Ghost, The Master Builder, The Wild Duck, or even Suffering of a Woman like Hedda Gabler. Ibsen's plays can be introduced at four steps, four stages, though we are more concerned with its third stage. यानी इब्सन की ज्यादा जो हमारे सामने शोहरत है वो थर्ड स्टेज के प्लेस की वजह से. First stage of Ibsen's work is called apprentice work. I mean, that's the time when he was a growing dramatist and he wrote his earlier plays on the models of other dramatists. Second phase is when he wrote the verse drama or poetic drama, and that was about ideals or quest for ideal, and its best example is Peer Gynt, a play that is about the discovery of human self, Peer Gynt. Third stage is drama of social reality, and it includes Ibsen's dramas like The Doll's House, Hedda Gabler, The Ghost, and last stage is which is called vision plays of Henrik Ibsen, and that include The Master Builder is best one. Beside this, Rosemarshun. Ibsen work reached English stage, and it caused a great controversy. That controversy was European in nature because a whole continent was offended with the idea that a woman will leave the family and live for her own self. I mean, the idea presented in his play, The Doll's House. And when he was criticized, he presented the play, The Ghost, where he exposed through the character of Mrs. Elving that the woman who does not leave her home, what happens to her? What type of hypocrisy, what type of suffering she has to undergo. So the process of Ibsen's reception, adaptation, and acceptance into mainstream of English theatre shuttled between the avant-garde, modernist movement and the mainstream of English theatre. Introduction of Ibsen's work to English theatre emphasizes the central place of realism and naturalism on the English stage and in native English theatrical conventions. यानी इब्सन से पहले इंग्लिश ड्रामे में नेचुरलिस्ट और रियलिस्ट टेंडेंसीज नहीं देखी जाती, तो इब्सन को जब परफॉर्म किया जाता है तो थ्रू इब्सन ये वो इन्फ्लुएंस है जो इंग्लैंड में पहुंचता है. I just mentioned the name T.H. Green. He is the man, you can say, our director of theatre, manager, who was the owner of independent theatre where Ibsen's dramas were produced. We can say the narrative emphasis on Ibsen's social dramas in English has obscured other areas of his work, his poetry, and his visionary and mythical dramas. Peer Gynt is an example of mythical drama, visionary drama, which I have just mentioned. That's Masquerade. Earlier translator of Ibsen was Edmund Gosse, and Edmund Gosse's translation of Ibsen's poetry and his critical writing on Ibsen proclaimed Ibsen as a satirical writer. Then Catherine Ray and Henrietta Francis Lord were motivated by Ibsen's feminism. I mean, Ibsen was introduced as a feminist dramatist because of the idea of female liberty that is seen in his drama Ghost, The Wild Duck, Hedda Gabler, and above all, Doll's House. Havelock Ellis is actually pioneer of Sigmund Freud in English society. He is known for his psychological writing, especially on sex. Havelock Ellis receives Ibsen as a dramatist of the conventional lies which are regarded as the foundation of social domestic life. That's the very theme of the play The Wild Duck. I mean, there is a life-saving lie which is represented through the character of Dr. Relling in the drama. So Ibsen was admired by, you can say, different sections of society, whether it's a psychological Alice or Catherine Ray and Henrietta, the female translator who were impressed by the idea of feminism. And there was William Archer, who wrote and collected articles on Ibsen drama and introduced as a drama of ideas. Ibsen drama is known for certain merits. The highly acclaimed merit is its compact plot. हमने इससे पहले शेक्सपियर का भी जिक्र किया, तो इवन शेक्सपियर के प्लॉट भी जो है इतने अच्छे नहीं हैं जितने इब्सन के ड्रामा के प्लॉट हैं। अगर अरिस्टोटल मौजूद होता तो शायद वो कहता है कि जो मैंने कहना चाहा था वो थ्रू इब्सन जो है वो पूरा हुआ जाता है। कंपैक्ट प्लॉट इज mastery of Ibsen's drama. Second is he added detailed stage descriptions. Mostly they were realist stage descriptions which were seen in his dramas, and scene was properly registered by dramatists. Third, he paid emphasis on the emotions of the character. Karl Marx's daughter, Eleanor Marx, was also impressed by Ibsen's plays. And we can see the reason that they debate the question of class consciousness. And she introduces Ibsen drama as a social drama, and that raises the social question. Ibsen's first and foremost impact on English theatre was social and political. Ibsen's efforts to make drama and theatre a means to bring into the open main social and political issues of the age shocked and scandalized the society. It was not Ibsen himself who greatly disliked this development, but a number of his early critics, admirers, followers like Shaw, William Archer, Brandeis, Gosse, and others formulated the doctrines of Ibsenism, which persisted for a long time and indeed still persist, in as much as Shaw's The Quintessence of Ibsenism, that's a collection of essays edited by George Bernard Shaw. It is usually assumed that the shock caused by Ibsen and the furiously hostile reaction his early plays provoked were due to this political and social subversiveness. I mean, they challenge the social and political parts of the time, but that is only partial truth. Actually, this reaction was also by revolution nature of Ibsen dramatic method and technique. Mean, if content was challenging, that was also method and dramatization or art or dramaturgy of dramatist that was revolutionary.